The Zodiac. 12 astrological signs, each assigned a ruling celestial body. The astrological rulers of each zodiacal sign are as follows. Aries, traditionally the first house, is ruled by Mars. The second house, Taurus, is ruled by Venus. Gemini, the third, has Mercury as its ruling planet. The moon rules Cancer. The sun presides over Leo. Virgo's planet is Mercury. Libra's planet is Venus. Pluto for Scorpio. Jupiter for Sagittarius. Saturn rules Capricorn. Uranus rules Aquarius. And lastly, Neptune rules over Pisces. The 12 astrological signs and their celestial rulers. It should, however, be remembered that this astrological order is a modern order. The 3 planets Uranus, Neptune and Pluto were added to the ancient zodiacal system as and when they were discovered. Uranus was added to the zodiacal system after its discovery in 1781, Neptune after its observational discovery in 1846, and Pluto was added only after 1930. Before these planets were observed, their astrological signs were ruled over by Saturn, which ruled Aquarius, Jupiter was said to rule Pisces, and Mars ruled over Scorpio. When replacing the modern planets with their original counterparts, this ancient astrological celestial order reveals a remarkable pattern. If we isolate the sun and moon, which both appear only once in this zodiacal system, and then move outward, we find Mercury at both positions, ruling over its respective houses. If we move outward again, we find Venus in both positions. This pattern continues with Mars, Jupiter, and eventually ends with Saturn, which completes this remarkable astrological symmetry. By isolating Saturn, we see it completes 2 zodiacal halves, one half beginning with the sun, and the other half beginning with the moon, both halves ending at Saturn. Saturn, the only planet to sit next door to itself in this system, could be said to occupy one overall Saturn house, and when this is formed, we find the zodiac beginning with the sun, going through Saturn's single house, and ending with the moon. With this configuration in mind, let us now focus on the signs these astrological rulers preside over. The sun and moon rule Leo and Cancer respectively, and Saturn, in the ancient system, ruled Capricorn and Aquarius. By linking all the signs together to form a complete 12-sign zodiac, and so to speak, splitting the zodiac between Leo and Cancer, let us now figuratively pull the astrological wheel outward, so that Leo and Cancer appear here, Virgo and Gemini here, and so on, until what is formed could be called a baseline zodiac system. Dividing this new baseline system into its houses, and placing to begin with the sun and moon at their respective houses Leo and Cancer, a familiar motif becomes evident. The sun and moon at either end of our baseline system reminds us of our old friends Boaz and Jachin, the 2 mysterious Freemasonic pillars which stood at the entrance of Solomon's temple of old. These 2 pillars are infamously named the Terrestrial and Celestial pillars. The Terrestrial pillar has the Earth sphere visible, and the Celestial pillar the stars. One represents daylight and the other night, and as seen on our Freemasonic tracing board, actual representations of the sun and moon appear above the pillars, giving us a direct hit, allowing us to synchronistically place our sun and moon pillars on our baseline astrological model. In keeping with the ancient planetary system, let us now add the remaining planets to our model, beginning with Mercury and moving inward until Saturn again stands next door to itself. And the pillars feature our Masonic sun and moon on their respective spheres. And, as previously noted, Saturn's 2 positions may have been considered as one single house of Saturn long ago. With the planets arranged in this way in our new baseline model, does this suggest that Saturn should top our middle pillar? The planet Saturn, just like our Masonic middle pillar, is said to feature its very own eye, as reported by the mainstream media and even NASA. This would seem enough, albeit synchronistically, to at least suggest that Saturn should top our middle pillar. However, on further analysis of the middle pillar, we discover that, at its base, two cube-like structures are included. These are known Freemasonically as the rough and perfect ashlars. It is said Freemasonically that Masons use these ashlars in two forms, one rough, just as it came from the quarry, and the other finely finished and ready for its place in the building. In other words, the rough ashlar is cut to shape until it forms the perfect ashlar. The two ashlars stand either side of the middle pillar, as though the pillar itself symbolically represents the catalyst for the ashlar's transformation, and if we are to consider our baseline astrological Saturn house as representing the middle pillar, then the symbol for Saturn itself represents a similar catalyst for change. The symbol for Saturn is of course the scythe, and the mythical figure of the god Saturn was frequently depicted with this cutting tool. In fact, Saturn's scythe is the only cutting tool of all the astrological planetary glyphs. It can be said to represent all cutting tools. Is this why the ashlars stand either side of the middle pillar, in reference to Saturn's cutting tool, which symbolically shapes the rough ashlar into its perfected form? Saturn is of course astrologically the planet of structure, and where else would the ashlar, which is shaped for building, be other than in the house of Saturn, the house ruled by the planet of structure itself? And what's more, the god Saturn seen depicted as the old man of the zodiac denotes the wisdom of experience, and the letter W for wisdom sits at the bottom of the middle pillar. The eye on Saturn resonates with the eye above the Freemasonic middle pillar, and together with Saturn's symbolic cutting tool and the old god's wisdom, we have ample synchronistic reason to place the middle pillar in our baseline Saturn house, complete with eye and ashlars. Taking a closer look at our single Saturn house, the line that originally divides the two Saturn houses is both the 30th degree of Capricorn and the 0 degree of Aquarius, as seen here on our conventional zodiac wheel. This 0 degree line of Aquarius represents a date in our solar calendar, the date when every year the sun aligns itself with this degree. This 0 degree solar calendar date is the 20th of January, and the 20th of January marks a very special event. The event is of course the USA's presidential inauguration, and its date has its origins in legislation known as the 20th Amendment. The 20th Amendment was enacted to move the original March 4th inauguration date to the 20th of January. This was done in the 1930s, and according to various official sources, the date that the 20th Amendment was proposed in Congress was the 2nd of March 1932, and on this date the planet Saturn was aligned exactly with our 0 degree line, precisely in the center of our baseline Saturn house. The 20th Amendment in the numeral tradition becomes Amendment XX. This XX resonates strongly with the seal of Saturn. In fact, the XX is, so to speak, a occult shorthand for Saturn's seal. Saturn's seal is created from Saturn's occult magic square, which features the numbers 1 through 9. Tracing a line from 1 leading to 2, then to 3, etc., creates this pattern, the magical seal of Saturn. Shortened to XX or the XX Amendment, the 20th Amendment, proposed on March 2nd, 1932, when Saturn was at our 0 degree line in the center of our Saturn house, and Saturn's seal is the XX, which is numerically 20, and the 20th Amendment moved the presidential inauguration date to January the 20th. The double X, or the seal of Saturn, strongly resonate with the Freemasonic compass and square, which is also seen between our Sun and Moon pillars. The compass and square and the seal of Saturn have further resonance with the six-pointed star. The seal and the star are interchangeable. Both contain the double X and both contain a hexagon at their center. This gives us another direct hit. Our hexagonal-centered, six-pointed star and seal of Saturn both combine to give us the mysterious hexagon as featured on the sixth planet Saturn itself. The hexagon is a two-dimensional version of a three-dimensional cube, and a cube, as well as resonating with our Freemasonic ashlars, also contains Saturn's seal. Our baseline model sees the Sun and Moon flanking the other five planetary rulers that, when added to our model progressively, are mirrored positionally. The Sun and Moon begin at the first house position of our two zodiacal halves. Then, in the second house position, Mercury mirrors itself. Then, in the third house position, we see Venus, again mirrored positionally. Then Mars, and so on, until Saturn stands beside itself in the center, occupying two sixth house positions, a perfect placing for our six-sided ashlars. The two sixth house positions could also be said to be one overall sixth house, where Saturn, our sixth planet, stands with its infamous hexagonal North Pole configuration, which contains the cube, which contains Saturn's seal, which is the double X, which resonates with the compass and square, which stand between the Sun and Moon pillars, and the double X is the double X amendment, or the 20th amendment, which was fixed for January the 20th, our 0-degree Saturn house line, where Saturn stood precisely when the double X amendment was proposed in the Congress of a country whose national seal contains the six-pointed star. The six-pointed star is of course composed of two interlocking triangles, one pointing up and the other down, often depicted as red and blue respectively. These two triangles, when separated, give us the male triangle pointing up and the female triangle pointing down, as seen in the traditional symbolic representation of the four elements, with the red triangle pointing up representing fire and the blue triangle pointing down representing water. The male and female fire and water triangles resonate perfectly with the Sun and Moon and deserve a place in our baseline astrological model upon their respective pillars. The combination of these triangles, as we have seen, creates the six-pointed star, which represents a union of opposites between male and female. The six-pointed star is the modern version of another central symbolic image that has its roots in the world of alchemy, the alchemical marriage. Alchemy is of course the strange proto-scientific discipline with its bizarre abstract imagery and its seemingly impossible quest to turn base metals into gold. One such bizarre and abstract image is the Azoth. Published in 1659, it features the face of the alchemist in the center of his seven-spoked wheel, which represents 7 alchemical operations and their respective metals, which the alchemist would use in his seemingly impossible quest for instant gold. Focusing upon the alchemist's face and the first spoke in the alchemical process, we see the symbol for Saturn, pointing directly toward a cube. Saturn and the cube are flanked by the Sun King and Moon Queen, with the Sun and Moon looking on in their familiar baseline configuration. The alchemist's cube aligning perfectly with our cubic ashlars. Another central alchemical theme is the alchemical marriage, another union of opposites which sees the male aspect standing upon the sun and the female aspect standing upon the moon. They offer each other flowers as a ceremonial gesture of their inevitable union, and this floral offering synchronistically forms a hexagon or cube. Eventually the king and queen disrobe and are seen in an hexagonal bath where they eventually consummate their union. The alchemical marriage with its hexagonal union of opposites between Solar King and Lunar Queen, is an alchemical precursor to the six-pointed star. The Solar King and Lunar Queen are interchangeable with the fire and water or sun and moon triangles. The sacred hexagonal-shaped offering forms the six-pointed star, and the bizarrely synchromistic hexagonal bath resonates perfectly with our baseline astrological model and Saturn's infamous hexagonal North Pole configuration. The Solar King and Lunar Queen stand as the ultimate resonators for our solar and lunar pillars, and their combined star offering stands with synchromistic ease at the center of our model, where our sixth planet Saturn sits. The alchemical marriage, as alchemical legend has it, results in the alchemical child, represented alchemically by the divine androgyne. The alchemical child stands between the sun and moon trees or sun and moon pillars and has a six-pointed star above its head. This figure also has its modern symbolic representation as the Baphomet, another androgynous winged figure that also finds its place in the center of our model. It sits between our Sun King and Lunar Queen pillars, and the Baphomet is half Capricorn goat and half Aquarius human. The name Baphomet, it has been said, is derived from the Greek words baphe and metis. The two words together mean baptism of wisdom, giving the Baphomet synchromistic precision at our model's middle wisdom pillar position, which stands between our rough and perfect ashlars. It is also said of the ashlars that they represent man in his ignorant, uncultivated state and as educated and refined, or put simply, the process of enlightenment, the attainment of wisdom, the very word used to describe our middle wisdom pillar. Upon the Baphomet's arms, held in the as above so below positional tradition, is written the alchemical phrase solve e coagula, meaning to separate and join together. The androgynous goat man also sits upon a cube which stands upon a sphere, resonating perfectly with the planet Saturn and its hexagonal or cubic North Pole configuration. The Baphomet's alchemical phrase solve e coagula, or to separate and join together, is the perfect magical motto for our baseline model, which separates the traditional zodiac wheel at Father Sun and Mother Moon, who then stands separated at our Masonic Sun and Moon pillar positions. The middle pillar, or the center of our model, our 0-degree line, represents their union as the six-pointed star, the fusion of the male and female fire and water or sun-moon triangles, symbolic of the divine androgyne child, also symbolized by the androgynous Baphomet, a fusion of our 0-degree Saturn-lined Capricorn goat and Aquarius man. At the 0-degree line, the six-sided cube is separated into the rough and perfected ashlars. The cube also contains Saturn's seal, which is another symbol which fuses separate opposite states. It signals the two occult directions, the above and the below, which are separated by a central plane, which also represents their fusion, creating a W above and a letter M below for man and woman, perhaps. Two arrows are also formed, suggesting another directional fusion, or in other words, as in the polarities, so in the center. The 20th Amendment, which set the presidential inaugural date at our 0-degree line of January the 20th, where the Sun stands annually, was enacted when the sixth planet Saturn stood in the exact center of our model's sixth house on March 2nd, 1932. It was joined there by the Moon less than a day later, so that all three of our pillar-topping trinity would cosmically converge upon our 0-degree line at the 20th Amendment's commencement, charging the new inaugural ceremonial date with the sacred synergistic energy of the alchemical union. and the Solar King and Lunar Queen, in some grand and ultimate as above so below alchemical operation, would transform the lead line of Saturn's 0 degree into a triumvirate alchemical amalgam of precious solar gold and lunar silver, so that the chosen president-elect, like some earthly embodiment of the divine Baphomet child, would, in his inaugural baptism of wisdom, with one hand above and the other below on the 66 books of the Bible, swear an oath to uphold his role as the chosen central representative of the polarized political party state and be the leader of a country forever divided.